Hello, and welcome to Spud Space Agency. It has been a while, far longer than I ever intended to leave between videos. It's been over a month now. I'll get into why a little bit later, nothing major, just being busy. And I thought, what better way to get back into it than doing a Moho mission, specifically one to go and try and reach the Mohole. There's something someone recommended in a comments quite a while back, and I thought that would be an interesting thing to do. As you can probably tell by the name of the video though, and the fact that, if you've not noticed already, I'm doing an overdubbed commentary after the fact, it didn't go particularly well. Turns out not playing the game for a month or so kind of dulls your abilities in it a little bit somewhat. But yeah, so as I've got the footage speeding past in the background, you can see me, I'm designing a lander, and what I've done is I've built a little sort of drone ship that I can potentially launch off and can send someone into the Mohole and save a Kerbal being like lost down there. So now currently just building onto the lander. So my kind of plan for how it was going to work was, I don't know if you can see, but I've got a main satellite antenna and then a relay communitron on the other side, and I was hoping that I could then sort of use that relay to connect to the little drone ship, so I didn't need to put a massive antenna on that one. As you'll see later on though, unfortunately that doesn't work like that apparently, which I now know. But anyway, I've added on some bits of science, not really necessary since we've maxed out the tech tree at this point, but I thought it would be fun to add anyway. And I added in a radar sort of sensor, because I know they can be used to find Easter eggs, and I was hoping I could use that to detect the Mohole itself. Turns out, again, that doesn't work without having another surface scanner, so another bit of wasted equipment, but it's all a learning experience, I guess. And then put on one of the big heat shields, since I'll probably be coming back very quickly from Moho, so the bigger heat shield just seemed to be better. And now you can see me designing up the interplanetary transfer stage. So I've got 4 nuclear engines and then a big thing full of liquid fuel, because we don't need the oxidizer for the nuclear engines. And then just as a sort of stage to help me get a little bit further, I'm just adding on a few Wolfhound engines, I believe. So the idea was kind of, 1,000 Delta V to use that to get me out of the Kerbin system. And then I've tried to give myself as much Delta V as possible in that sort of nuclear powered interplanetary stage, because Moho takes a lot of fuel to get to. I've tried to budget myself around 10,000 meters a second on top of the lander to land down and get back up to it. As you might have guessed, that ended up not being enough. Whether that's more than enough and it was just bad piloting, I guess we'll see in the future. Should have gone a little bit more overboard though, unfortunately, but I had enough troubles getting this thing to take off as is, even with this takeoff stage, which you can see me building now. So we've got a Mastodon engine flanked by 4 Vector engines, and then on the side we've got those sort of twin bores and some solid fuel boosters, which I kind of hoped would be enough. I did check, and I have got a positive thrust to weight ratio, so we can take off. You can see me just building up the fairing here. But it's not a particularly high thrust to weight ratio, as I'm sure you'll see just a second. Just checking my staging here, making sure that everything is good for takeoff. Adding in the 3 Kerbals who are going to pilot this thing. And here we go. So, first takeoff. So the control point was set to the upside down lander, and it didn't like that. So reverted, set the control point as the actual facing up cockpit that the people are in. Tried that again, and you might be able to tell, but I am taking off incredibly slowly right now. I've sped the footage up a little bit because it might as well if I'm doing an overlay, if I'm overdubbing, that's the word. This is going to be a little hectic, this video as well. There goes the twin bore engines, and we're still going up at okay speed, not great, but as soon as we lose those solid boosters, it just absolutely drops. And you can see now we are now just falling back down. We're not gaining any speed, and there is no way that this, I don't have anywhere near enough thrust. So after that failure, I have swapped the vectors out for more Mastodon engines. So instead, so I've now got 5 Mastodon engines at the bottom. No, 4 Mastodon engines. And I should have added on some Separatrons there. So 4th launch now. I added on the Separatrons, which you can see there are working decently well. And even so, again, as soon as we lose those boosters, we just absolutely plummet with our speed, which just results in us not getting high enough. And then as well, when we lose that bottom stage, don't have enough fuel to take, I don't have enough thrust or control. So after that, I decided that I need much more launch thrust. So I'm strapping on these, the Mammoth engines, that's it. So we've got an extra 4 of those, which is a little bit overkill, but taking off that now, and this is insane, this rocket now. But we are taking off a little bit quicker, and we've got a lot of fuel in there as well, which is nice. So they fall off nicely, and our speed doesn't drop, but it stops increasing, which isn't great. I think the main problem with this is I'm not building enough speed. Also, I keep turning way too late. There goes those bottom ones there, and you can see again our speed is dropping, but we are going much quicker than any of the previous attempts, which is a plus. And we're also already higher than the previous 2 attempts. We only managed to get up to about 24 kilometers before. So we're decently building up speed here actually, but we are unfortunately nowhere near far and building up enough speed. We needed to be like a minute away from our apoapsis, and we were like 15 seconds away. So that was never going to happen. And then again, I swapped to these Wolfhound engines, and they just can't do anything for this level of craft. The whole point was I was supposed to be basically in orbit by this point before I used them. So I've swapped those Wolfhounds out for Vector engines, and I believe I've also added on another Mastodon engine just to give me a little bit more thrust. And you see this one, we do actually make it into space. But, oh no, sorry, so I hadn't swapped out the Vector engines yet. But we do make this one to space, but then these Wolfhound engines, unfortunately, don't give me enough power to circularize the orbit. So now I've swapped out the Vector engines, and we are ascending. And good news, this is the last takeoff that you'll have to watch today. This one was actually successful. It's not the worst launch ascent as well. It could have been better, but it's not too bad. But you can see we're building up way more speed now with that extra Mastodon engine. In future, I might just add more of those, just shove on a big engine plate and put a bunch of them down. But now with those 3 Vector engines, we've got enough thrust and control that we are able to circularize. So that's it. We are well into the atmosphere, and we have a circular orbit, which is very nice. Took me far longer than I was hoping to get to this point. I'm just deploying the fairing there so everyone can see outside and we can see our lovely 2 ships. And of course I forgot to launch at a transfer window, so just make sure I've got on here. So it should be from Kerbin to the sun to Moho. It should be about 110 degrees. And we're actually not that far off. I think we're about maybe 115 or so. So I decided to not wait around and try and do that. So you can see me setting a orbit maneuver. And I got to a maneuver that was going to cost me about 2,100 or so Delta V, which is decent. And then I've just pulled that back into Kerbin's sphere of influence so that I can split it up into two parts, because that's supposed to make it a lot more efficient. So just starting the burn here. Kick off, and now we're on those Wolfhounds again, but it's not too bad now that we're interplanetary. Well, not quite interplanetary yet, but there enough. And so we've extended that out, and then I try and set up the second half of the burn. And we are miles apart. I'm not entirely sure what has happened with this, to be honest. Why it's so different, but you can see there the fuel cost was like well over 3,000, and actually it's going up as I'm burning, and I'm also burning into Kerbin's atmosphere. So I had to reload that, and trying that again, you know, I instead just don't burn out quite as far instead of pulling it back. I'm wondering if that's what the issue is. I'm desperately trying to sort of get a maneuver that works the second time around. In the end, I just decide, you know what, I've got a maneuver that's only going to cost 2,000. Why am I repeatedly trying and failing at splitting it up? Let's just do it in one burn. So I do just do it in one burn. And as you see, we do actually get an encounter here. So I then went and sort of aligned the ascending nodes, so we're on approach, and there we go. We do have our Moho encounter. See there, I've opened up the bays and stuff, tried to turn on that scanner, and we're just heading on over. Oh, and there goes the external tanks. So yeah, what I tried with this is I added some fuel tanks onto the edge that once they're expended, I could get rid of them, save a bit of weight, and it also just looks pretty cool. I do enjoy that nice little pattern as it leaves. And there is our encounter again. Cool. So, as we are starting to just correct our orbit here, the reason I've not been about, honestly, is just been work. I've just been very busy with that and not had a lot of free time. I typically tend to record my videos in the mornings, but either before work or on a day off, and I've just not had the time to do that. And then any spare time in the evening, I've maybe been just playing a little bit of Baldur's Gate 3, and by a little bit, I mean a lot. But honestly, like, that doesn't really change the time that I'd be playing that when I'm not recording anyway. But yeah, I'm hoping to get back into making videos more often now. So I don't know if you can see there, but the amount of fuel it's going to take us to circularize is immense. It's going to cost us over 5,000 meters a second of Delta V to not even properly circularize, to just barely get captured by Moho, because it's such a small planet that it's, you know, gravity is tiny, so you need a lot to slow down, and especially as we're so close to the sun, you're going so quickly when you come down. And as we were burning to circularize, we pulled our orbit sort of far too close to the planet, so I'm just having to now burn out again a little bit to not crash into the planet whilst burning, and just continuing that approach. And you can see we do manage to capture around, but we now only have 1,400 meters a second of Delta V left, which is almost nothing. So I tried that again, just, you know, having it extended out a little bit further to begin with, and nothing really changed, to be honest. So I decide, let's just see what happens if I extend it out so I am actually orbiting. I am captured by Moho, I can orbit around it. And yeah, I'm not happy with the amount of Delta V that I have left. I am not confident that I'll be able to return to Kerbin and sort of, you know, dock at, or land on Moho and get to the Mohole. So I decided to call this mission a loss and, you know, protect the Kerbals. I could have, you know, landed on Moho and quick saved or left them stranded there, but I didn't want to do that. I want to, you know, land on Moho on a successful mission, not a botched mission and then a rescue. So yeah, to protect the Kerbals, I decide to bring them home, as with the lander and the transfer window, I have enough fuel. You can see there I'm trying to control the little probe that I made to send down into the Mohole. This is where I discovered that it doesn't work with the relay like that, so I'd need an actual antenna on it. But you do have limited control, so you can like max throttle up and max throttle down. So I do that and you know, leave a little memento around Moho. Anyway, we've done half of our burn back to Kerbin there, and just now swapping over to the lander and heading off with that. And here's me panning around, and oh look, there's Kerbin. Let's go, and oh, I'm moving further away. That's because I saw just 40 kilometers and thought, oh, excellent, that's going to land me in the atmosphere. It was 40,000 kilometers, so, you know, sailed straight past the planet. There I jettisoned the heat shield instead of deploying it, so everything blew up, so trying that again. And this time I do actually remember to inflate the heat shield as opposed to jettisoning it. We can watch the fireworks. And ooh, that definitely smashed straight through our heat shield, but thankfully physics didn't trigger. Otherwise that would have been sad. And then we lose the heat shield and land back down on Kerbin. So, bit of a different video, just a chronicle of failures, to be honest, but I hope you enjoyed them nonetheless, watching me fail. I thought I might as well post this, and next time I'm gonna be going back and trying to actually succeed, heading to Moho and landing on the Mohole. I've learnt a fair amount, so I think I just need more thrust and probably a better launch time and sort of profile. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, guys, and I hope to see you next time.